Welcome to HCICast. I'm Mike Schneider, Executive Vice President and Principal at Greystone.Net. And I'm excited to once again introduce my Merge co-host. This is Megan Finkelman. She's the SVP Group Client Service Leader at Merge.
Thank you, Mike. The countdown to HCIC continues, and joining us today is Ahava Leibtag, President of Ahava Media Group. And today we're tapping her expertise to talk about the latest in the world of content strategy.
Well, let's jump right in. Ahava, it's great to see you. We've known each other for a really long time, but some of our listeners may not know you. So maybe tell a little about yourself and your role as president at Ahava Media Group.
Sure. So I've been running Ahava Media Group for 16 years. I started off as a freelance web writer. The first time I presented at HCIC, I believe, was 2013.
Wow.
Yeah. It was the same year that I published my book. I write about content strategy and content marketing in the book and how those things converge. It's an old book. I probably need to write a new one. But most of our work is in the hospital and healthcare system space, although we do work with B2B healthcare tech software companies, government agencies, things like that. So very involved in public health, health literacy, making sure that concepts are understandable to people, and really just thinking about how content is consistently changing in the marketplace and how healthcare marketers and communicators can keep up with it. So that's what we do at Ahava Media Group. Love what we do. Our mission is to empower people to make the most important decisions of their lives. Very passionate about that, really a mission-driven organization, and love to work with other mission-driven organizations.
Your presentation topic is highly relevant to healthcare organizations as they're looking to employ content strategy to engage with patients and to position their brands for success. What can you tell us about the most pertinent challenges organizations face when it comes to website content and meeting user needs?
So there's a lot of them. And my presentation really focuses on a redesign that we did with U of T Cancer Center, which is also now in partnership with MD Anderson. So that brought a whole other layer to it. But service line content is the bread and butter. Most sites would say that 80% of their traffic is through services, treatments, and conditions, and doctors also, obviously. And I always talk about it at a health system, it's a three-legged stool. There's locations, doctors, and services. At an academic medical center, there's now a four-legged stool, and research becomes that fourth stool. And so that fourth leg of the stool. And so anytime you're talking about information architecture and the flow of content, you need to be thinking about those three or four things. Most patients want to know what's wrong with me, who's going to treat it, how experienced they are doing that, who's going to pay for this, and is there free Wi-Fi? I mean, that's really what people are thinking about when they're thinking about a healthcare journey. And, you know, in that sort of order. And the free Wi-Fi is a joke, but it also does speak to the amenities that people expect now from a healthcare experience. So when we're thinking about service line content, what we're really trying to do is we're trying to, first of all, impress upon the person that they've landed in the right place. So we want to address their concerns head on. We want to pull them through the search funnel through search. So really thinking about the keywords that are going to help the page become the page that gets surfaced up when people do this searching. We want to make it clear to them that they can trust our organization. And that trust also falls in line with all the SEO things we need to worry about, like expertise, authority, and trustworthiness. And then we need to sort of tell them, why should you choose us over somebody else that you might choose? And the more subspecialized you become, the more and more that differentiation matters. So I think that when people are thinking about it, they need to think about it as a garden. If we do not tend to our conditions and services pages, we are going to lose important traffic that converts. The second thing that they need to think about it is that if they're working with subject matter experts who don't understand digital content or what the goals of the content are, which are to bring in patients, not to educate their colleagues about what research they're doing, they can really sort of kill the content. And so, you know, too much sun is a bad thing. So we really have to work with subject matter experts to help them understand the goal of what we're trying to do. And then I think the third thing is that you have to tend to that garden. So people tend to write this content and leave it up there for years and not look at it till a new service line leader comes in or until somebody sees the content and gets annoyed that it's out of date. And so those are really the issues. And because hospital marketers and communicators are pressed rice paper thin, they don't have what they need to be able to tend to those service lines. And so sometimes the only real time they get to do that is in a redesign. And that's where it becomes really challenging, because you're trying to move all this content and rewrite it and redevelop it for a new platform, and it just becomes overwhelming. So I think the presentation is really designed to sort of tell people, here are some guardrails you can put on this project and these processes that you can use in your own projects to help you make this just a little bit easier.
That's really great. Ahava, you've been involved with your clients pretty deep for several years. And so I'm sure that you have—
For 16 years.
16 years, a very, very long time. What do you think some of the top trends are in terms of content strategy for clients that are thinking about this year and the coming years?
So the first thing is that we need to get our operations back on the ground after COVID. Will this ever be over? And right now we're talking at a time when, cases are rising across the country, and, the Delta variant is sort of surging. So I think that hospitals really feel pressed to make up revenue and to figure out how they're not going to shut down, or how they're going to continue operations going. And I think that we're in a good place in most places in the country. And I think the media is not doing a good job of explaining what's really going on to the vaccinated and unvaccinated public. But I think the real challenge is how we are going to understand that our conditions and treatments pages are product pages, and that all the other content we produce is really designed to build brand awareness. So I think a lot of content marketers in hospitals should be thinking about how to create more biteable content. I think that they should be thinking about things like IG Reels and TikTok. I think they should be thinking about changing their content strategies as channels are changing. I find that Twitter has really changed in the last 3 or 4 years. I think that LinkedIn has become much more of a rich environment. Doximity is really a place where hospital marketers don't spend enough of their time and their money in a thoughtful way. And so I just think that people are really going to need to start thinking about, how do we really drive business and use our content to do that, instead of recreating a health library, or, copying something that Cleveland Clinic did, or trying to create a lifestyle blog because that's what's in style right now, but really thinking about, what can we use to push our business forward, either from a brand awareness and strategy perspective, or from a completely tactical service line, get people in to get mammograms and capture them into the funnel and everywhere in between.
I think your point about the landscape and the channels being dynamic and constantly changing is really critical, and knowing that our consumers are experiencing, or maybe even a couple steps ahead oftentimes of marketing teams in terms of their day-to-day engagements with those is really critical. Obviously, you can't share your entire presentation with our listeners today, but can you give us a little sneak peek into what the attendees can expect to learn or take away from your presentation?
Yeah, I don't know when the last time you moved is, and I think that Lauren Smith and her team at UT were really thinking about, how are we going to take this website that we have that really isn't working for us, and we know that, and how are we going to turn into a website that really is going to meet our business objectives and also help our users accomplish their tasks, whether it's making an appointment, finding out more about a doctor, understanding a condition a little bit better, or surgery, or whatever's involved in cancer treatment. And there was that famous person on Netflix, Marie Kondo. Remember, she was the one that talked about, like, you can only keep things in your house, like, if you hold them and they bring you joy, right? And so when you're moving, that's a really important thing to think about, because you don't want to spend the money to move boxes of things that you're not going to use. But there's 2 problems in an academic medical center and in moving. The first is that in an academic medical center, a doctor could hold this and say, it brings me joy, but a marketer could hold it and say, throw that thing out. And a data analytics person could look at it and say, this is not serving the business. And so you don't really have a good way to decide, what do we keep and what do we throw away, because too many people want to keep things and too many people want to throw them away. That's the first issue. The second thing is that people get exhausted. So when you're moving, right, like you carefully sort through things. And then after a while, you're just like, throw it in a box and we'll deal with it when we get to the new house. And that happens on websites as well, right? Like, forget it. I don't know what to do with this piece of content. Let's just migrate it over. So again, there needs to be a matrix of like, how do we decide what to keep? How do we decide what to rewrite? How do we decide, what might need like editing? And then the other thing people are going to take away from our presentation is that building a content strategy first really is important to design. We worked with 10 Atoms and they were fantastic, but there was a moment during the redesign process where they came back with the wireframes. And I said to them, guys, this doesn't follow what the content strategy said. And when we looked at it again from that perspective, we were really able to see how the wireframes needed to be changed to follow through on what we had found through the content strategy. And I think that will be a really interesting, eye-opening piece. We, and Megan and Mike, I know you know this, we as a content company are brought in so far along the line. And it's just so frustrating. They're so far into this redesign, and then they ask us to write words to put into boxes that don't speak to the strategy that they're really trying to accomplish. And so one of the things that I have been trying to tell the world, and a lot of people have gotten it, but a lot of people still haven't gotten it, is bring in a content strategist early on to help you make some of these important decisions. And so that's what people can expect to get out of it. Guidelines and processes around how to decide how to move forward with content, why bringing in a content strategist or strategy firm at the beginning is so important, how that affects design, and then how that affects content design and development.
You've had some experience at HCIC. You've been a speaker, you've been an exhibitor, you've been a sponsor, you've been to many, many of our events. What are you looking forward to this year at HCIC?
First of all, the friendships. Like, I cannot wait to give certain people hugs. We are so lucky. We are a supportive community. We all care about each other. Particularly during COVID, like Mike, we reached out to each other. I was on the phone with Kathy. I talked to all different kinds of people, competitors, people who are kind of in my space, people who are like parallel play with us. And it was just so great to talk to people, hear their ideas, hear what was going on. So I think the community of healthcare marketing, particularly through the lens of the web, which is what HCI focuses on, is really fun. I cannot wait to hear what people have learned from COVID, how they think they're going to apply it. Are there really going to be these sort of like major, shifts that we're hoping will happen with healthcare marketing? Did they really push us the way that we wanted to? I always feel like in our industry, it's like 2 steps forward, 8 steps back. So I don't exactly know how we move forward, but eventually we get there. And then I think the last thing that I'm really looking forward to is just those side conversations. Like after you have a presentation and somebody comes over to your booth and they're like, I want to ask you a question. And in those 10 minutes, I learn enough that like literally I can pepper that learning into every conversation I have for the next 4 months. So just those conversations are so powerful. And if you are doing anything that's connected to digital and healthcare, you should be at HCIC every single year if you can. And I know that budgets don't always allow for that, but I just think to me, it's the most valuable conference for me that I attend every single year.
Well, Ahava, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of HCICast. We can't wait to hear more from you at the conference. I personally am excited to hear your session. You've got a real gift for metaphors, which I appreciate.
Thank you. I am a writer.
Well, there you go. It'll be terrific. So again, thank you for your time here today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. And if you have any questions about whether or not you should go to HCIC, clearly you know what my stance is. But if you have any detailed questions, please do reach out, Ahava at ahamediagroup.com. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ahava. We're looking forward to your presentation. Again, Ahava will be talking about managing a massive content rewrite with a regional cancer center affiliated with MD Anderson. Her presentation is going to be on November 2nd, so make sure you hop in and watch Ahava and say hi to her. For more information about that session or anything about HCIC, you can visit our website at HCIC.net, and we look forward to seeing you there.